Imagine holding a piece of paper that everyone around you believes is worth something, even though it has no gold, no silver, and nothing backing it but trust. Today, that feels normal. But over 1,000 years ago, that idea wasn't just unusual. It was dangerous. It was revolutionary enough to reshape economies, empower empires, trigger chaos, and ultimately mirror the exact financial risks we see in our world today. Our story begins in ancient China, in a bustling market filled with merchants who were becoming richer, more connected, and more ambitious than ever before. And strangely, the thing holding them back wasn't competition or taxes or war. It was something much heavier, literally, metal. Back then, China relied on iron coins, which were round, heavy discs with square holes punched through the center. Merchants threaded hundreds of them onto cords, carrying these ropes of money over their shoulders like financial dumbbells. If you were wealthy, you didn't just walk into a room, you clanked into it. And this clanking came with problems. It slowed down trade. It made long-distance deals nearly impossible. And worst of all, iron coins were so common that governments kept printing more, which quietly pushed prices up and eroded the value of everyone's savings. Sound familiar? But in China, something different happened. Merchants didn't wait for the government to fix the system because, like today, governments move slowly and merchants move fast. So a group of wealthy traders in Sichuan created something bold. They issued paper receipts, handwritten on thick mulberry fibers, guaranteed by their personal reputations. These receipts represented coins stored safely in their warehouses. They weren't money, but they acted like it. People trusted them because the merchants who issued them had reputations worth more than the metal they guarded. In the simplest terms, these traders accidentally invented the first version of paper money. And they did it not because they were trying to change history, but because their backs hurt from carrying iron around all day. When the government saw these paper notes taking off, it did something extraordinary. It copied the idea. For the first time in human history, a government said, "We will print money that isn't backed by anything except the fact that we say it's worth something." It was the birth of fiat currency, decision so far ahead of its time that most parts of the world wouldn't catch up for nearly 1,000 years. But the moment the government stepped in, the story took a turn. Because where merchants had been careful, measured, and almost conservative in their printing, the government saw paper money as a cheat code, a magical button they could press whenever they needed funds. And like every empire that's ever existed, once they discovered the button, they pressed it too much. At first, it was harmless. More notes meant more trade, more convenience, more growth. People felt richer. The economy buzzed with energy. Paper money seemed like the future. Then came war. War always accelerates bad financial decisions. The government printed more notes to pay soldiers, buy supplies, and stabilize distant borders. Taxes couldn't keep up, so printing filled the gap. The value of each note slowly slipped. Merchants began demanding more notes for the same goods. People who had saved responsibly watched their purchasing power evaporate. You can almost hear echoes of modern headlines, and this is where ancient China teaches us a powerful lesson. When money becomes easy to print, its value becomes easy to lose. And trust the real engine of any currency starts to crack. Soon, counterfeiters joined the chaos. Fake notes flooded markets. Prices spiked. The government tried to fix the mess by issuing new notes and ordering people to trade in their old ones. But trust doesn't reset with a government decree. By the 1200s, paper money had become both the miracle and the curse of the empire. It allowed China to build an economy so large and sophisticated that even European travelers couldn't believe what they were seeing. When Marco Polo visited, he described the system like it were magic, writing that China could make wealth out of the bark of trees. To him, this was sorcery. To China, it was Tuesday. But even sorcery has limits. When the Mongols conquered the empire and took over the printing presses, They printed even more notes to fund their vast campaigns. The currency collapsed. Inflation skyrocketed. People refused paper entirely. The world's first fiat system imploded under the weight of its own convenience. And here's the twist. China didn't return to paper money for hundreds of years. The trauma was so deep, so culturally scarring, that generations preferred metal again. Imagine a society so burned by inflation that they'd rather carry iron on their backs than trust a piece of paper. Now pause for a moment. Look at our world today. Nearly every modern currency, the dollar, the euro, the yen, is pure fiat. Backed by trust, not metal. Governments still print money during crises. Inflation still punishes savers and distorts wealth. And every time a financial system feels shaky, people run to alternatives. Gold, real estate, crypto. Anything that feels more real than what governments print. We are living a more sophisticated version of the same psychological story. The tools changed, but the fears did not. Cryptocurrencies emerged for the same reason ancient merchants invented paper notes: a desire for a money system outside government control. A system backed by rules, not rulers. A system that promised stability through code rather than politics. And yet, even crypto echoes ancient China. When excitement builds too fast, value spirals beyond fundamentals. When too many people expect unlimited growth, trust becomes fragile. Booms inflate. Bubbles pop. Paper, metal, or digital. It all comes back to belief. This is the quiet truth about money that ancient China discovered first. Money isn't a thing, it's a story, a shared belief, a collective agreement that a symbol, whether it's paper, code, or a carved iron coin, contains value. And as long as people believe the story, the system works. The moment they stop believing, everything breaks. So what does this teach us today? It shows us that innovation in money always starts with inconvenience. It grows through trust, dies through overuse, and then it returns again when a new generation decides to reinvent the story. The first paper money didn't survive because it was flawed. It collapsed because it was too powerful. It gave leaders an ability they weren't ready to manage responsibly. And the consequences shaped how future civilizations thought about value, inflation, and trust. If you zoom out far enough, the entire history of money looks like a conversation between human ambition and human fear. Ambition pushes us to create faster, lighter, smarter systems. Fear reminds us that those systems depend on discipline we don't always have. And somewhere in the middle, between aspiration and caution, we build the world we live in today. When you look at the cash in your wallet, the numbers in your bank app, or the crypto in your portfolio, remember this: you're participating in a 1,000-year-old experiment that began with exhausted Chinese merchants trying to solve a simple problem. Their solution reshaped empires, fueled global trade, created wealth, destroyed it, and eventually became the foundation of the modern financial system. The story of paper money isn't about paper, it's about people. People trusting each other. People doubting each other. People building, gambling, innovating, panicking, and reinventing the very thing that defines power and possibility. And as long as money continues to evolve, the questions ancient China first struggled with will continue to echo into our future. How much can we print? How much can we trust? How long can the story hold? Because in the end, the real currency isn't paper, it is belief. And belief, once lost, is the hardest money to create again. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this chapter in the story of money, please like and subscribe. It helps more than you think, and it tells me you want to dive even deeper into the ideas and events that shaped our economic world. And if this episode opened your eyes, don't stop here. The next video in this series reveals the surprising forces that came next. There are so many more stories like this, strange, surprising, and incredibly relevant, and I'd love to share them with you.